there, welcome back to another video. This time around, it is my rant on the 1991 made-for-television sequel, Omen IV: The Awakening. Now, I gotta be honest here. Omen IV isn't one of the worst sequels that I've ever seen. I've also seen worse made-for-television sequels to fairly well-known horror franchises. But this is still ultimately really lame and boring and pathetic in its own right. Just because it's not one of the worst I've ever seen, it doesn't mean it's a good movie. It's directed by Jorge Montesi, and he was actually the replacement for the original director, which was Dominic Othenin-Girard, who was the director of Halloween 5, which honestly I hate a lot more than this, because I really like Halloween 4, and Halloween 5 just completely butchers that movie. And apparently, Dominique was fired like a week or two into filming for this because of a couple different factors. One of which I heard that he was a little difficult to work with. That tracks. I think I heard the same thing when it comes to Halloween 5 and other films that he's done. And the second reason was that he took his sweet ass time shooting scenes like he was some kind of artiste for a Fox TV movie of the week. And you can't do that. This is a television movie. There's a strict deadline. You can't take your time. So he got knocked out of the picture with a wrecking ball, and then Jorge Montesi was brought in, and Jorge is well known, or at least was well known enough in the industry at the time as a guy who could be like Mr. Fix-It. You bring him in to get your film or your television episode shot quickly and on budget. And that's what you get here. The direction is not anything remotely impressive or incredible. It's definitely not amazing in any capacity. It's pretty standard. There's a couple shots here and there that are a bit stylish or are well done. There's one death scene involving a wrecking ball in particular that I thought was really well shot. Good use of slow-mo. Just a good sequence overall from a directorial standpoint. And there's a few other moments involving like a supernatural death that are in the same boat. But there's a lot of scenes that are just very stodgy, very just stock and stiff looking, and the camera really doesn't move a whole lot, and there isn't a lot of creativity, originality when it comes to the camera work. Just very generic pan zooms, if you get anything like that, and that's understandable. Like, you're working with a tight budget and a tight deadline and don't have time to really be super ambitious with things unless you're a really established, amazingly talented filmmaker. Like, for example, William Friedkin shooting Nightcrawlers for the 80s Twilight Zone. But that's not Jorge Montesi. So, yeah, you get what you get when it comes to the direction for this film. The screenplay by Brian Taggart, I thought it was terrible. So much of this film is just a really low rent, lazy knockoff of the first film, which is to be expected for this kind of thing, because Harvey Bernhard is the main reason why this even got made, and the fact that Fox was just desperate for anything to put on their network at this time because they just started out, and they were just beginning their journey as a network, and Fox just was notorious at the time for just doing anything. It didn't even matter like whether or not it was something that was a good idea. Technically, they're like, oh, you have a script, oh, here's some money, go make it. Because we need stuff to put on our network. And yeah, it's just very typical, just tedious, and just, like I said, lazy stuff, because you have this congressman named Gene and his wife Karen. once again, the wife has issues having kids, so they wind up obtaining what they think is a miracle when they are able to adopt this young baby girl, and they call her Delia. Uh, there's minor differences in terms of how she behaves and when she starts behaving badly compared to the first film. For instance, she actually scratches Karen in the face when she's a baby. So it's not like it waits until she's like 5. The other difference is that she's 7 years old throughout the majority of the movie, not 5. Um there are still Rottweilers that show up and help her out. I will give the writer this, though. There's one scene with a Rottweiler where the Rottweiler saves Delia from getting hit by a car, and that was kind of inspired. That was kind of interesting. But after that, it's just typical sort of stuff with a really puzzling change in terms of the script. And I get why it's there because it's trying to be something different with the Curlian photographs and the new age stuff. But it doesn't make any sense when it comes to Delia being the spawn of Satan. Like, why would crystals and new age stuff have any effect on the devil's child? Like, that doesn't make any sense. But it's there because it's trying to be something different, which honestly I kind of will give it the writer some credit for trying, but it just doesn't make any sense within the context of this franchise. And it's honestly really lame. Like, it's not even cool. It's the kind of stuff where you see the Curlin photograph and it's really badly done, and the New Age festival scene is just pure cringe. And it's just one of those things where you look at it, you're like, this doesn't really help. Like, this makes the film worse. The crystals all turn brown, like they've turned into a bunch of turds, which is kind of fitting because that's what this movie is. It's a smelly turd. But yeah, Delia, she has a hard time fitting in at school, and she is bullied by this one kid, but then she sets him straight by smacking him in the face with a lunchbox and then making him piss his pants later, which I'm like, the contrast between the two things is pretty funny, where she starts out just like, no prisoners, I'm just gonna beat your ass. And then later on, oh, I'm gonna annoy you, get you to chase me. I'm gonna go up a ladder, and then you're gonna try to go after me, and I'm gonna make you piss your pants with my psychic powers. So I'm gonna humiliate, embarrass you. And I'm like, that's not really. I don't think that's nearly as bad, to be honest, when it comes to just kicking his ass. Like, I'm surprised it didn't just escalate to the point where she embarrasses him by handling him physically in front of the whole class. Like, he challenges her to a fight and she kicks his butt, but now they do the whole pisses his pants thing. He runs away, and then his dad is upset, so his dad tries to confront Delia's parents, and that doesn't end well because Delia just uses her powers to take him out with I think it's like a garbage truck or some kind of. It's like a not really a garbage truck. It's like a trailer, like there's like a car that's like carrying a trailer and or some kind, and then something happens and it backs up and the trailer smashes through the top of the car, and it's insinuated that it decapitates the dad. And that's another difference that I will give the writer some credit for. Like, he doesn't really make it so it's one of those things where Delia is slowly coming to realize her abilities and doesn't quite know the strength of her powers yet. Like, no, she's very aware of what she can do. And that leads to typical stuff where, okay, she's being kind of problematic, so then this nanny type lady named Joe is hired by the Yorks to take care of Delia. Delia doesn't like her. because she's a new age guru. Joe is also getting weird vibes from her. That's why she enlists her friend to help her out. He's not getting good vibes from her either. Just getting all kinds of bad vibes. That leads to a scene at a new age carnival or festival of some kind. And it is really crappy. And the festival burns down because Delia just makes everything burn. And then she takes out Joe later and essentially psychically throws her out a window. And then that leads to Karen trying to figure out what is going on with Delia. And that leads her to investigating Delia's birth, just like the first film. And instead of it being just a photographer guy, it's a PI who she hires named Earl Knight to try to figure out the mystery behind Delia. And that leads to Earl finding the nun from the start of the film who provided the baby to the Yorks. And of course, there's also the political stuff with Gene York and stuff like that, with him rising up the political ranks and so on. There's this other subplot with this doctor that is, doing treatment on Delia and the family. I think his name was Dr. Hastings. And the screenplay, when it's just the PI guy investigating Delia, it's kind of interesting. So I think that should have been the focus instead of just a really lame, bland, dull retread of the first film. Just focus on the PI guy investigating Delia and just these weird occurrences. I think that would have been better. But that even still has its problems because there's a lot of stuff in this script where it's just trying way too hard to be scary to the point where it's laughable. Like there's a whole scene where the PI guy, after he's done his investigating, and after a decent scene where he finds Sister Yvonne, who is this manic preacher out of state somewhere involving rattlesnakes. Like, yeah, the scene has rattlesnakes in it, and she's manic because she's got a screw loose, but she's got a following. And she does this thing where she gets her devoted followers to handle snakes, in the name of God. And of course, it goes bad, and the evil force behind Delia causes the snakes to freak out and bite her, and even bite the PI guy. And the PI guy finds out a lot of extra information about Adelia and her birth and other things from a folder that he finds in Yvonne's trailer. And I believe it's Yvonne. I think that's who it is. Like, it could be, is it Francesca? Is it Francesca, or is it, because I know one of the preacher, the preacher who did the baptism, he dies. I think wasn't there another nun that died? Oh yeah, it is Sister Yvonne, who also goes by the name Felicity. And so the PI guy, he's now the next target of the demonic force. And there's a whole scene where I guess he's supposed to be hallucinating or something. But there's a choir. There's a bunch of zombie looking people carrying upside down crosses, and they're singing a demonic choral tune. It's so silly. And there's too much of that too with the upside down crosses, to the point where it almost feels like a parody. And there's this whole subplot that's eventually revealed involving Delia and the doctor, and how the doctor was covering things up because after the investigator guy gets taken out by a wrecking ball, Karen is left on her own, and she gets the information, though, that was mailed to her by the PI guy, and it reveals the truth. And she tracks down the doctor, and I'll give the writer this, makes Karen come across pretty dang strong. Like, she stabs the doctor in the hand with a scalpel, getting information out of him, and you find out that Delia is not, the Antichrist. She's just another child of Damien. And they did something where she got pregnant, had a baby without Karen knowing. Well, actually, what happened is she got pregnant and they transferred the fetus uh, uh um to the mother, which is Karen, because she got pregnant again. And I'm like, I don't know how that works, but okay, demonic magic powers, all right. And the boy that she just gave birth to, that is the new Antichrist. And I'm like, well, if this is supposed to take place after the final conflict, like, why is any of this happening? Why does it matter? Because didn't the second coming happen? Like, Christ is back, so what? And isn't Damien dead? So I'm just kind of like, I don't, like, how can he provide a seed? Did they get him to donate his sperm? Did they get Damien to to nut into a cup and then save it in a freezer? Like, I don't understand this. This is really where the script just goes off the rails, and it was already kind of going off the rails to begin with. But like, here you're like, what? It's just a really weak attempt to try to tie this into the Omen series and not have it just be its own knockoff of the Omen called, the Devil Child or something. Um and it ends rather predictably where, the new duo of devilish devilry lives on, because Karen can't finish the job, can't shoot the kid, can't shoot both kids. Instead, the Force winds up making her shoot herself. And the last shot is of Gene York, who's now a shoe-in to essentially become a senator and then maybe president. And he's there with Delia, and Delia's doing the thing where she smiles towards the camera, and he's got the baby, and setting things up for multiple films that thankfully never saw the light of day, because the intent was that if this was successful, they were going to do more of these Omen films, and it was going to be kind of an anthology sort of thing, which in theory isn't that bad of an idea, but in execution, it's pretty egregious. So yeah, it's not a good screenplay, and it does a bad job in terms of really making you get to know Delia or care about Delia. See, before in the first film, and even in some of the sequels, you had a bit of sympathy for the Antichrist, or you just kind of had this feeling that maybe things could turn out differently. Maybe there's hope, but there's no hope for this character, because she's just automatically just a total devil and a brat, and there's nothing likable about her. There's no shred of anything that can make you think, maybe she might not be who people think she is. Maybe she's just a troubled kid. And I think that's what they're trying to do, because that's some of the stuff with the dialogue with Joe, but it doesn't come across that way. And like I said, it's not completely without merit, because I don't mind the private eye scenes, and I actually don't mind the way that Karen is written, the mother. I think she's written rather strong. That's what makes the ending kind of a letdown, because I actually grew to like that character. Um, but yeah, it is not a good story or a good script. It really is. It really is a stretched out plot line for a horror anthology. That's the best way to sum up this film, story wise. The cast for what this is, which is a relatively low budget TV sequel, I think there's a couple good performers in it. Faye Grant, for instance, I thought she did a pretty good job as the mother, Karen York. I actually think she was charming. She was believable when she needed to be more intense. I definitely felt for her. I felt her performance was definitely the best one, other than what Michael Lerner brought to the film as the PI, Earl Knight. Like, Michael Lerner was good too. Like, I thought he did a solid job. I liked his performance. I think he's kind of an underrated actor anyway. It's just nice to see him play this kind of character, and I think he genuinely had a good time playing it, because it definitely seemed that that was the case. And that's why I would have liked to have seen more of him. Maybe make him the focus, and then have Faye Grant be involved here and there. Michael Woods, who plays Gene York, who really is a poor man's Jeff Speakman, who sounds crazily like Bruce Campbell. It's like this guy could be the stunt double for both Jeff Speakman and Bruce Campbell. But he has none of the charisma of either one of those actors, or the acting talent. Same thing goes for Asia Vieira as Delia. This is an awful performance. I mean, even when it comes to a child actor, this was really awful. Just wildly uneven, all over the place. You didn't buy her when she was supposed to be sad. You didn't buy her when she was supposed to be angry. You didn't buy her when she was supposed to be scary, even with all the wind blowing through her hair, or the spooky music, or her making stern faces. It None of it works, because this this young actress is bad. There's a reason why she didn't do a whole lot, because she's not a good child performer. You don't get an authentic performance from her. Anytime when she's trying to do anything, it just comes across like it's forced. She's trying too hard, and as a result, it just comes across as a really poor and at times pathetic performance for a character that's supposed to be this new embodiment of evil. The rest of the cast, I mean, Madison Mason as the doctor, I guess he was kind of there. So was Anne Hearn as Joe Thewson, or Jim Burns as Noah, or Megan Leitch as Sister Yvonne. But yeah, the cast is really pretty much only two performers that really stand out in any capacity, at least in a good way. Like, there are other performers like Asia Vieira who stand out in a bad way. But when it comes to like good performers, like, there's only two of them. It's Faye Grant and Michael Lerner. And the music, this fucking soundtrack, this score, like, I paused there for a second, because just thinking about this score just irritates the hell out of me. This is one of the worst scores I've ever heard in any film or any television show. This score is stupendously shitty on just an unheard of scale. Like, this score is an abomination. It really is. The scariest thing about this film is this score. And it's scary because of how bad it is. It sounds like Danny Elfman composed this score while he was drunk and high on speed and PCP. Like, this score is just a mess. It's a wild, just woeful mishmash of clashing tones. Anytime when it's trying to be scary, it's laughably overwrought and over the top. Anytime it's trying to be full of tension or suspense, or have some sort of notes of sympathy or other emotion other than oogity boogity scares, it's also really bad. I I can't even fathom how anyone could listen to this score and be like, yeah, that's good. That's good enough. Oh, I can because it's Fox in the early 90s. They don't care. They didn't give a shit. They were like, oh, it's a movie, it's feature length, and it's got music. Good enough for us. Air that shit on Friday night at 8 p.m. Um, but yeah, this score is, it really is something else. Like, it's almost one of those things where I kind of want people to see this movie just to hear how bad this score is and how badly it's fit into the film. It's one of those rare instances where a score significantly impacts a movie in a way that makes a movie that's already bad even worse. And even at a shorter running time of like 97 minutes, it's still a slog. It's still hard to sit through because you got the bad acting from the bad seed, the new seed, if you want to call it that. I don't know why this wasn't just a bad seed remake. If you're just gonna have like an evil girl again, call it the new seed. There you go, the new seed on Fox. Why does it have to be an Omen film? It doesn't really fit within the franchise, and really any sort of sizable way. And yeah, it's a bad movie. It really is. But you know what? As bad as this film is, I'd rather fucking watch this than this fucking thing. But anyway, thanks for watching my rant on Omen 4. And until next time, I'll see you later. See ya.